everyone, it is that time of the year again. A new Hearthstone set is coming out. It's called the Perils in Paradise, and there's some interesting gimmicks already being announced. So we've got the first opening reveals of the card. Let's first go through the new mechanic that has been added with the Perils of Paradise set. And it's called Tourist. This is the new keyword. An example here is on Sunsapper Linessa, which is a rogue tourist paladin card. 5 mana 2/6. Your spells that cost 2 or less cast twice. Now, here is the text taken straight from the Hearthstone website for how Tourist works. It's a bit wordy, and I'm not 100% certain I understand it, but I think I do. Basically, if a card says Tourist on it, it will say a certain class, then Tourist. When you put this card in your deck, during your deck building, it will allow you to put a card from the class that is on there. So, for example, if you put Sunsapper Linessa in your deck, you'll be able to put a card from Rogue in your deck, but it will only be one from the Perils in Paradise set. So, it's a very specific pool of cards that you can add into your deck, but it's kind of like, it's almost like a dual classing type thing. So, the Rogue Tourist card here, you could get a rogue card that costs 2 or less that comes from Perils of Paradise, and it would cast twice. Or you can get anything from the Paladin set. So that's how the Tourist mechanic works. Every single class has their own Tourist class, and it cycles around a bit like the dual class mechanic. Anyway, so we have Sunsapper Linessa here. Okay, you're a 5 mana 2/6, spells that cost 2 or less cast twice. First, we can go through the Paladin spells. Mining Casualties with this. Insane. You get 4/1/1s that death rattle into 4/1/1s with Rush, which are the frail ghouls which will eventually die at the end of the turn. That's a lot of value for 7 mana. That's pretty good. Hand of Adal as well. You put Hand of Adal on your Linessa. For 7 mana, you get a 6/8, right? And you draw 2 cards for 5 mana. Value, 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 baby. Whack-a-Knoll. New card, barely seeing any play. 6 mana, you discover 2 Paladin weapons, give them +1/+1. That's, again, a pretty nice value option. Also, with something like Shroomscavate, I believe this would give you the double Excavate. Very nice. Also, the excavated cards themselves, some of them are spells, so you could get a double cast through this. So, there's actually quite a lot of intrigue here with Linessa. Now, obviously, right now, we can't fully judge some of these cards because I don't know all the Rogue set cards. But what has been shown off already? Petty Theft. 2 mana spell. Get 2 random 1-cost spells from other classes. Cool, right? Obviously, this is for Linessa. The best card I can compare this to from the Rogue class is Thistle Tea Set. Thistle Tea Set sees 0 play right now, or almost 0 play. They're the same mana cost. You are in a more finite pool of cards, the 1-cost pool, versus any spells from other classes. But sometimes you do want these more expensive spells from the Thistle Tea set. So I actually think Petty Theft is pretty bad unless there is a 1-cost spell synergy, which there might be in Paladin. You never know. There are other 1-cost spells in Paladin that have been revealed. Spoilers for later. So Petty Theft might be a good card, but not in Rogue, but in Paladin. Kind of mind-blowing, right? In terms of the 1-cost spells, there's so many of them. I've not numbered them all down. I think something like Funnel Cake might be a really good one for Rogue, because obviously mana cheat in Rogue is really good. So the ability to get more mana crystals back to, play more cards is probably going to be strong. Other than that, you're looking for some value cards, maybe like the standardized packs, for example, to get you even more cards, to play even more cards, to discount them, to play them, to discount to play. Yeah, that's going to be Rogue. Anyway, obviously the game plan though is to play that with a Linessa, in which case you get 4 1-cost spells. But without any other synergy for the 1-cost spells, I feel like you're kind of on a hiding to nothing, right? Anyway, the other weapon you got for Paladin, to go back to that class, Volley Maul, 3 mana 3/2 weapon. After your hero attacks, you get a 1-cost sunscreen that gives +1/+2. The sunscreen is literally a 1-cost spell. Again, with Linessa, if you have that on board, the spell will go off 2 times, so you get a 2/4 for the cost. That's reasonable value. I think you'd prefer to use the Hand of Adal for 1 more mana. But again, I'm kind of looking for this 1-cost spell mechanic in Paladin being rewarded by some means, because surely they have to have one, right? Rogue generates the 1-cost spells, the Paladins generate 1-cost spells. Surely 1-cost spells is going to be a thing, right? Who knows? Other things that, could trigger with this, Lady Liadrin is currently in the core set. You play your sunscreen, it goes off 2 times. You play your Lady Liadrin, you get some sunscreens back. And maybe you just fill your hands full of sunscreens, you keep putting them on minions. Maybe it's a minion buffing type deck where you buff on board. Now, the problem with this is, currently the strongest deck in Paladin, and one of the strongest decks out there, is hand buff Paladin. And I just think Painter's Virtue is a much better card than Volley Ball, for the most part, but we're going to have to see the full set to fully elucidate whether this is true or not. The other tourist card that's been revealed so far is Buttons. 5 mana 5/5 undead, Shaman Tourist, aka you can put a Shaman card from the Perils of Paradise set into your deck. Battlecry, draw a spell of each spell school. Okay, let's deal with this with Death Knight at first, because my first thought was like this could be good in a rainbow deck. But actually, there's only 2 spell schools currently in Death Knight. It's Frost and Shadow. That is that. It doesn't really benefit from you having the multiple different rune requirements. So in fact, I think Buttons in a Death Knight deck would probably be better just to draw out a really big finisher of a card. Something like the Scourge. Unfortunately, like a lot of the big finisher cards, I would say as spells within Death Knight are actually classless, so Buttons doesn't really target them. So we're really looking for, Shaman to come up clutch here. And we've only revealed 1 Shaman spell for the new set. That is Malted Magma. This is the other gimmick of this set. There are going to be some drinks cards, they're called, which say, like, 3 drinks left. And basically the drinks just give you multiple uses of the card. So you play this, it'll end up having 2 drinks left and 1 drink left. And after the last drink, you've drank the bar dry. So you could get this spell from your tourist card, Malted Magma. It's a fire class spell, 2 mana. Deal 1 damage to all enemies, 3 drinks left. I think this card is pretty bad, not gonna lie. So Immolation Aura and Whirlwind, they're both in the core set right now. Whirlwind sees 0 play, Immolation Aura sees 0 play. Now I do appreciate they hit your own board as well. Okay, fair enough. Fan of Knives is in standard right now. It sees very little play. The only reason it sees play is for Rogue to cycle their deck. And also, sometimes Rogue needs to deal with the early game cards. And Rogue really has, like, no board clears. So Fan of Knives actually gets, like, elevated beyond its station. But more importantly, it's cycling to another card in your deck. Malted Magma can be seen as 2 mana, deal 1 damage to all enemies. Draw a card. And it isn't, all minions, it's all enemies, so it hits the face as well. I feel like this is super minor, though, the difference between doing 1 additional damage to the face versus drawing a card versus getting another Malted Magma. So I'm not super hot on it. It's kind of like Arcane Explosion for Shaman. I think it's better than Arcane Explosion. In fact, it definitely is better than Arcane Explosion, just because it hits the face as well, and you get multiple uses of it. But I don't think it's super good. It kind of requires the meta to go into a position where there's a lot of early game token minions, and I don't think that's really where the game is right now. A card, though, that I think is going to actually be really good. Corpsicle. 2 mana single Frost Rune Death Knight card. Frost, School as well. Deal 3 damage. Spend 3 corpses to return this to your hand at the end of the turn. Wow. That is 3 damage every single turn for a Death Knight deck. That's Mograine in a card. Sure, you're spending the 2 mana every single turn, but aggro decks will love this. The card immediately, when I saw this, I thought, oh, it's that card again. Frozen Touch. Do you remember Frozen Touch? It's almost the same as well. Frozen Touch was in Fuse 3. This is spend 3 corpses. But obviously, in Fuse, you needed the Frozen Touch in your hand to get the infusion off. You don't need that with Corpsicle. You can generate the Corpsicle in advance, draw the Corpsicle, play it, you get another copy in your hand. Now, obviously, the drawback to Corpsicle is you don't have the ability to Frozen Touch, infuse 3 times again, Frozen Touch again, and then maybe throw 1 more Frozen Touch out at the end of all of that. You are stuck to this 3 damage, 3 damage, 3 damage. But hell, if you can generate a ton of corpses, which, these aggro, I'm like envisaging double unholy single Frost rune deck, generate a ton of corpses, you draw your 2 Corpsicles in your deck, and you start throwing out 6 damage every single turn to the face. That is going to be really scary. I think this card is going to be possibly undervalued, but I think potentially insane in an aggro Death Knight deck. And I think there's almost a series of cards there for that archetype. I think they were missing a big card in that archetype, and Corpsicle might be the big card they were missing. Alright, to bounce back to Shaman again now, they have Cabaret Headliner, a Naga 4 mana 3/3 minion. Battlecry. Reduce the cost of a spell of each school in your hand by 2. So seemingly both Shaman and Death Knight has this reduced cost of spell schools or spell school synergies at the very least in their archetypes. Cabaret Headliner is interesting because Shaman's actually got access to a lot of spell schools, 5 in fact. You might not know this. Nature, obviously they have access to. Fire, they have access to. Frost, but only Chill Vibes, I think currently is the only Frost card they can have access to. They also have Shadow in incredible value. And finally, 1 arcane spell as well, Wish Upon a Star. You have all these 5 cards in your hand, you throw down your Cabaret Headliner, you've discounted 10 mana. That's disgusting. Really, really disgusting. The problem with this card, though, is fitting this smorgasbord of spells into a deck. Especially when, like, you would probably assume you want a spell-focused deck for your Cabaret Headliner to make sure it hits multiple cards. However, a lot of these cards here are requiring you to have minions in your deck, like the Wish Upon a Star. It's the only arcane spell. So maybe you drop that, I don't know, and focus on the other value spell-generating cards. I'm not sure. To be fair, if you're hitting like 2 spell schools, you could argue that Cabaret Headliner is kind of like a 0 mana 3/3. Obviously, it doesn't quite work like that, but let's pretend that it does. It's actually pretty good value anyway. There's obviously a way to tutor into your spells as well. For example, you could use like something like Hagatha to draw your Wish Upon a Star, your Once Upon a Time, then you play your Cabaret Headliner to discount those spells and assume you're going to have drawn another one at that point. That could be nice. Also, just an FYI, Shudder Block. If you get the Shudder Block into Cabaret Headliner, this will go off 3 times, and you will discount 6 mana on your spells, aka all the spells in your hand are probably going to be free. That could be truly disgusting if you can fit this all together into one package. I'm actually not sure it's going to work, and also currently, value decks aren't that good in my opinion. There's a lot of really good hand buff decks, there's a lot of good buffing Death Knight decks. The Plague Death Knight deck also like exists out there, which means that you can't get this infinite value, you'll lose eventually. I just don't think it's a great set right now for value decks, and I don't think anything is going to change from now to this set that's going to make the value decks any better, but we'll see. Maybe this will be a thing. Anyway, Druidland, we've only seen 1 card. It's a new location. It's Hiking Trail. 3 mana, 3 use location. Discover a taunt minion. After you gain armor, reopen this. This is the first reusable location, like something that you can use on the same turn, basically, is what I mean. Sorry, when I say reusable, obviously it's reusable in 2 turns' time. But potentially you can have Hiking Trail up multiple times in a turn, or even onto the next turn instead. And I believe this is a gimmick of this set as well, that the locations might be reopenable. It'll be interesting to see how this works. It's a value-generating card again. Is that going to be good? I mean, it depends on the taunt set, right? Just to vomit out a few taunt minions in Druid. They've got some good cards in like Snuggle Teddy, Tyrantus, Greybow. A lot of the dragons also have taunt, like you could get a Desert Nest Matron, a Fire the Setting Sun. You could pull out Dirty Rats as well if you're trying to combo break an opponent, and the combo requires minions. Back into Neutral Land, Azerite Chain Gang. You play your Hiking Trail maybe. Maybe you wait a turn, you reopen it, you play it, you get Azerite Chain Gang. It's going to be fairly easy to quick draw that, and that's, you know, 4 mana for 6/9 in stats with taunt. That's pretty good. Maybe as well you can put some sort of elemental package in there. Thunderbringer is a taunt minion, Therazane's a taunt minion. Perhaps, you know, you can discover these cards more consistently. But I think that's going to be the issue of this card. There's 27 other neutral cards on the ones I've shown you here that have taunt, and 2 other druids. This is Thickhide Kodo and Gloomstone Guardian. The pool is huge for taunt druid cards, and some of them are not as good as other ones. Like, we've shown 9 here, and then there's 29 other ones. You've got a decent chance of finding a decent one, but I just don't think it's quite there for taunt druid just yet. And again, value decks, lol, right now in Hearthstone. Also, the second aspect of this card is that to reopen it, you need to gain armor as a class. Obviously, pushing the button is one way of doing this, but it's actually one of the best ways of doing it, weirdly. Forbidden Fruit potentially could be 0 mana. I know, it's not quite 0 mana, but like, it could be like 1 mana gain armor. Obviously, the requirement is a little bit more specific for you to get that 1 mana gain armor. But it's a way to reopen the Hiking Trail. Armor Vendor may legitimately be the best way right now to open it, other than pushing the button. 1 mana, you know, gain 4 armor recycle your hiking trail. Other than that, your next best protocol is Frost Lotus Seedling, which is more expensive than the button, so I feel like we're missing some parts of the package here for Druid. So again, we're going to have to wait and see, but I'm not convinced right now by this value taunt package. Alright, now we come to the neutrals and a legendary AFK. Very famous card in Battlegrounds, as at least the hero. Famous card in the dungeon runs as well. Now has finally got a card. 5 mana 0/5 legendary. At the end of your turn, give all other friendly minions that didn't attack +2/+2. I'm going to preface this with, I actually think this card is really bad. And I'm going to sort of explain why. It'll end up being the best card of the set, but my gut feeling right now is it's not going to be very good. Why is that? Partially because it's 5 mana. It's going to take too long to get up. Obvious cards to play with this are stuff like Swarm of Lightbugs, the RC Rampage, the Muster for Battle, something that generates a big board of tokens. If you can get a big bottle full of the Lightbugs for Priest, you play your AFK, you play your Swarm of Lightbugs. You could see that it's like 6 mana, maybe you get the 6 minions and you get +12/+12 on top of the 1/1s. And that's a disgusting turn, but it's so much like fine tuning that I just don't think it's a realistic outcome. In which case you're more likely to fill the board with the full bottle, but that's a 10 mana combo. And is 10 mana generate a board with 6 3/3s and 1/0/5 good enough? I'm not convinced, especially when the only way this card then is useful is if your minions don't attack again. I think it's just too expensive for the cost. RC Rampage is another one, the Hunter equivalent, but I think even Hunter, like, they don't want to get to 9 mana with RC Rampage, like, it's too slow. And equally, you don't want to play RC Rampage on 4, AFK on 5, and then not attack with your RC cards. It is so anti-tempo that I just don't see it. One of the more likely options is Muster for Battle, which is only 3 mana. It's pretty easy to set up. So for 8 mana, you get 9/9 as stats, a 9/14 as stats, a 1/4 weapon as well. That's not bad, but it's not great either for 8 compared to other cards you can do. The card I'm going to compare this to is Replicatinator. This card sees 0 play. It just takes too much to set it up. And actually, there's probably easier setups with the Replicatinator than AFK, so I think this is just going to be simply too slow. Alright, other neutral cards. Travel Agent, a 2 mana 2/2 pirate. Battlecry, discover a location from any class. That might be nice in your rogue decks where you want cards from other classes. And the location pool right now is pretty fine-tuned. So this is every location in the game. Now, I put a question mark on Prisoner of Yogg-Saron. I'm pretty certain you won't ever discover that from Travel Agent, because it does say a class, and neutral isn't a class. So I think you'll find only the other ones. But just in case the game is spaghetti coded, maybe you can get Prisoner of Yogg-Saron. For the most part, I think the cards are good. Dance Floor giving your minions Rush is probably fine. Mosh Pit giving your minions Reborn is probably okay. Crystal Cove turning your minions into 5/5 is probably fine. Hiking Trail is just a value card. Puppet Theatre is a value card. Fairy Tale Forest, most decks run a Battlecry minion. It's a value card and a draw card. A Sanguine Depths, I nearly put into yellow, but 1 mana, deal 1 damage. Gain +2 attack could be used both offensively and defensively. I like it. Similarly, Muck Pool I've put into green. A lot of decks probably can find a good target to evolve within their deck. There's then some I think are a bit more specific. Forge of Wills, it's 4 mana, it's pretty expensive, but most decks will use the Forge of Wills. It's just the cost in playing it to begin with is probably a bit too high. And similarly, Magical Dollhouse is a little bit too niche. Some decks don't run many spell damage cards, so I think for some classes it's going to be really good to get that. Some it's going to be really bad. But reminder, you get to discover, so you're going to get to pick one of the green cards over the other ones. Then I think the 3 which you're going to be like dreading if you ever get those 3. I think Fan Club is pretty bad for most classes. Crimson Expanse is also pretty bad for most classes. It's very slow. It's more of a combo enabler. Obviously, you don't want to discover combo enablers because you won't have the rest of the combo. And then Jungle Gym is very specific for beasts. And a lot of classes don't want beasts. And the one class that probably does want Jungle Gym is Hunter. And they will put that in their deck anyway, so they don't need the Travel Agent. For the most part, though, I think you're guaranteed to get a pretty good location. It's a pretty good value card. Maybe you'll see this in some sort of control value deck, but again, I just don't think it's going to be good enough. Even though it's 2 mana 2/2 draw a card and has Pirate as well for a keyword. I think there are going to be better options in the game. That is my gut feeling. Weapons Attendant, 6 mana, 6/4 pirate. Battlecry, if you control another pirate, equip a random weapon from your deck. Now this seems too good to be true, right? There's an obvious combo here. If you get your toy boat, and then you play your Weapons Attendant, you play your water cannon from your deck, you attack, you get a 1/1 pirate. After you summon a pirate, you draw a card. So all in all, it's like an 8 mana combo where you cheat out a 4 mana 3/3 weapon, you cheat out 1/1 minion and you draw a card. Like, all in all, like, when you package it together, it's pretty decent, but the problem with this is, I feel like the pirate rogue deck wants to be aggressive, and 8 mana isn't aggressive enough in Hearthstone. This is just too slow. This got me thinking, like, maybe there are some weapons in the game that are expensive enough to be worth running a pirate to cheat it out with the Weapons Attendant, but actually the most expensive weapons in the game are 6 mana, Frostmourne is one of them. The Wind Fury weapon from Shaman is another one. The Paladin 6 mana, you attack, you get like a 3/3 taunt or something like that is the other 6 mana one. One of those is the Battlecry, so you don't want to cheat it out because you'll lose the Battlecry, which is most of the value. And the Wind Fury weapon, I think is good enough that you would normally put it in your deck regardless, and don't super care about cheating it out. I just think this card is too slow for the game right now. I don't think you can wait till 8 mana to get this cheating combo out. Watch your space though. If they release like a 10 mana weapon, then maybe Weapons Attendant goes into that deck to cheat out the giant weapon. But I literally think you have to be in that 10 mana range for a weapon for this to be even worth considering. It's just that simple. Also, only a few classes have pirates accessible to them. Rogue is like the big obvious one. There are neutral ones, but you don't want to just be playing neutral pirates just to cheat out a weapon. It's not good enough. Drink Server, this card I've left till second from last. I think this card could be pretty good. It's a Murloc Pirate, 2 mana 2/2. Death Rattle, you get a random drink spell, which has 3 uses. Currently, we've only seen 1 drink spell, it's Malted Magma. I don't think it's particularly good. If there is a good drink spell released in the game, maybe it sees play, but it's on a Death Rattle, it's a slow value generator. It's probably not going to be good enough, right? That being said, the Murloc pool is fairly small right now. If there is some sort of Murloc deck out there, maybe your drink server makes that list because there's this insane drink, maybe there's a hand buffing drink or something, and your drink server has a chance of getting it. I don't know. I suspect, though, it's not going to be good. Finally, and definitely not least, Marin the Manager, 7 mana 6/6 pirate. Battlecry, choose a fantastic treasure. You shuffle the other 3 into your deck. By the way, this is the card you get for logging in early. So, everyone that logs into Hearthstone right now will get Marin the Manager. This card is insane. Like, truly, truly insane. Especially in Rogue, in my opinion. So these are the 4 fantastic treasures. You've seen them in the past before. There's Golden Kobold, which is a 3 mana 6/6 taunt minion, which replaces your hand with legendary minions. There's Wondrous Wand, which I think is what most people will get. 3 mana, draw 3 cards, reduce their cost to 0. Insane. Tollin's Goblet, which I think most people won't play, certainly as the first choice. 3 mana, you draw a card, you fill your hand with copies of it. Obviously, you can get some insanely high rolls on that, but there are some very low rolls in that as well, probably. And then Zarok's Crown, which I think is your second choice. Discover a legendary minion, summon 2 copies of it for 3 mana. There are some bad legendary minions in the game, like AFK. But actually, at least the AFKs will play off one another, so it's not actually the worst thing. I joke about AFK. There are some bad legendaries in the game, though, but you get to discover it, so you get to mitigate that to some degree. Now, the reason why I say this is going to be insane is this card, Heist Baron Togwaggle, in Rogue, kind of broke the game around Galakron's series. And part of the reason for this was that people would bounce back the Heist Baron Togwaggle because you're a rogue, and you would get multiple copies of the treasures. Hey, Marin the Manager is neutral. You can put that in your rogue deck. It costs 1 more mana, but you don't need to control the lackey, so it's kind of like equivalent. You're kind of spending the 7 mana anyway to get the Heist Baron off. You play your Marin, you Shadow Step it back. Hey, you're at 10 mana, you have 3 mana left to play your Wondrous Wand, you draw 3 cards. What if you draw a Zarok's Crown with that? It'll cost 0. You play 0 mana to discover 2 legendaries. Very cool, right? It's just going to be an unbelievable value smorgasbord with Marin plus a Shadow Step. So I think this will almost certainly see some play in Rogue, in some sort of value Rogue deck. Will it work? Actually, maybe not, because Rogue has this issue that they can't control board states, and right now big board states are a thing, especially because of stuff like the Paladin and the Death Knight. So it might be just too slow, but if Rogue can live till turn 10, They will do some truly, truly disgusting things. So yeah, we'll see if they can do that. Anyway, I'm really excited to see the new set. I'm excited to see the new cards. I like the idea of this tourist mechanic, but we'll see how it, it comes out in the wash. It's going to be very specific on the... Because it's only from the pool of cards from this new set, it's going to require this new set to be pretty strong for the tourist cards to be good. But I'm hoping it's going to be like the dual class cards, where more choice means more variety, which means more interesting deck building. Anyway, thanks for watching this, and I look forward to seeing more of the reveals as they come through. Bye!